Well, this morning on Media and Society, we have a look at whether the public understands the role of local government and if media fulfills its role and responsibility adequately in educating the public about local governance and policies. We also have the winner of the Nelson Mandela Film Festival Lifetime Achievement winner in studio with us this morning. Well, hello and welcome to Media and Society. I am your host, Naledi Muleo. Of course, this is the show where we take a look at the intersection between the media and society. And as usual, the show really isn't complete without your input. So feel free to give us a call on 011-714-0661 or 0662 or tweet us using the hashtag SABC Media Society. So let's get into our discussion for this morning. We all know the important role that local government plays. Of course, it's a dual role encompassing both administrative functions for the provision of essential services, but also the vital role of representing and engaging citizens and really shaping the local priorities and strategies, addressing local people's needs. But a pertinent question really that we're asking this morning is whether the media fulfills its responsibility adequately in educating the public about what happens in their local government, and if it tends to focus predominantly on sensational events at a national level to the detriment of what happens at local points. Well, joining us for this very important discussion, we are joined via Zoom by our very own reporter, Tebogo Paikedi, SABC News journalist who joins us live from Mahikeng in the Northwest. We're joined by Mr. Chris Papas, who's mayor of the Umgeni local municipality in KZN. We're also joined in studio by Mr. Kondile Ketama, who is the spokesperson for the Mangaung municipality. He's also a communications specialist and a political commentator as well. And we're joined in studio by Mr. Mzuvugile Gashe, who is the executive project manager for MDDA. Gentlemen, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And to our guests on Zoom, good morning to you.
No, thanks, Naledi, and to your viewers.
Kondile, I want to start with you because I think last week we had a discussion here on the show and really you sparked the conversation. We had a discussion last week on the show about BRICS and how it is translated to people. And one of the things that you did when you called into the show was talk about there's no point in talking about global geopolitical issues if we can't talk about what's happening at local level. How important is it for the media to really reflect what's going on in our municipalities? Let's start there.
Yeah, it's very important. It's important in a sense that you can talk about national, provincial government, but ultimately things, get done at the local level. And for me, if you are to really talk about the reportage, particularly that comes from various media houses, I want to, in a small way, credit SABC because they do try, particularly on radio and so. But most media establishments do not. I don't know if they are not prepared to learn local government or what, because much as there are issues that relates to poor services, malfeasance and what, but there is still a story to tell because personally I don't think there's been a fair assessment of what is happening in the municipalities, and particularly because I'm based in the metros, because much as you talk about daily issues that are happening relates to poor service delivery, but you also have to really reflect some of the, there's always a municipality. When you wake up, you go to the bathroom, it's municipality. When you go to the private room, it's the municipality. So you can't tell me that there's absolutely nothing that is happening. And this is where I think the media loses a plot of looking into the detail of the municipality. But I want to to take this further by saying, Naledi, you would know when you started in the media, you'd have beats. I can't remember anybody talking about the bit of local government, where there are specialist reporters on local government. And for me, this is where the intricacies are. Because if you don't get people who special, local government on its own, it's a big sector. And you can't simply because people were protesting yesterday and say there's absolutely nothing happening. So that is where I have a problem. Yeah. But generally, I think municipalities are the coalface and the media has to do its part. Yes, I want to credit, for example, your community media. where you just make a call and they relay the information. And we don't give them enough credit for that, because community media is one of the sector that we need to respect, particularly as communicators in local government, because anytime we want to talk, we just do so. And they do not have a problem like your competitors. I don't want to mention them. They just relay the information, and we are doing very much less in terms of assisting them to survive, because they are not SABC, they are not other people with big budgets. So I think we also have to close that gap as communicators, particularly in the local government sphere.
Yeah, we raised this discussion because we are going into national government elections next year. And a lot of the time what the media does when we get towards elections is go into our communities to hear of the issues that they have. But the issues are really local government issues. And Executive Mayor Papas, I'm going to come to you for this one. I mean, you certainly have been one of the characters that I think has captured South Africa's attention, right? A mayor who's really risen through the ranks in Umgeni, in KZN. And perhaps talk to us about just how the media plays a role for you in being able to shine a light on what actually goes on in your municipality and how it's worked out for you.
Thanks, Naledi, and good morning to everyone. So, Naledi, I agree with my colleague from Mangaung. You know, community media plays an incredibly important role in what we do in local government. You know, when we were campaigning for this particular municipality, we built a proverbial wall around ourselves, trying to block out the national and provincial issues that really don't affect people daily, you know, in their homes. What people in your local municipalities want to hear about is exactly what my colleague has spoken about. Why is the water not on? Or why are the roads full of potholes? Why are the street lights not working? Those are the daily things that affect people's lives, and you know, local government is the one who has to deliver on those things. So when the macro discussion is you know, drawn towards border security or you know, national policing or something like that, it really doesn't speak to what people are feeling in their homes. You know, when they walk out their front door, they turn on their tap. So we do that quite often. We try and block out the national narrative or the provincial narrative and focus on what we have to do here. So in the two ways we do that is firstly the community media, you know, your freebie newspapers, your local radio stations. I think we don't really have community-based television, but that's when the second part of the important part of communication comes in, and that is your social media. So social media has opened up this incredible platform for local governments to communicate directly with their constituents across all communities. Multiple platforms allow you to reach out to different communities and, you know, break language barriers, break geographic barriers, break racial barriers to try and communicate the message of local government. Whether it is educating people around civic issues or whether it is updating people on projects. You know, some municipalities even go so far to use it as a mechanism for input into budget and community-related projects. So yeah, there's a deficit when we look at big media houses and how they communicate to local people, but I think those gaps are being filled in more creative ways.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk a little bit about how you engage with local media, what are the challenges that you have had though in engaging them? I can imagine that we're talking about under-resourced media houses here. You're talking about freebie newspapers in your community as well. I mean, has that been a factor for you in trying to communicate what's going on in your municipality to those media houses?
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, as much as media is there to report and to put forward the truth, at the end of the day, journalists have got to earn a salary, newspapers and radio stations have got to make money to be able to run their operations. So there's always this balancing act that to take place between the smaller the municipality or the more rural the place is, the less likely you are to have multiple means of communication, because there's just no business model for media to exist in those areas in a financial sense.
Yeah, Mr. Ketam, I'm going to ask the same question to you before we bring in the media specialists here and say, okay, let's go to Mangaung. It's a very important municipality, a political hotbed, if you will. What does local media look like in Mangaung?
Well, we do have platforms, but they are not as, you can't compare it to your Cape Town, to your Johannesburg. But the little that we have we do utilize it and maximally. But the other thing that, Naledi, that I want to bring in here, as you put it, they lack resources. I know colleagues from MDDA, they try their best. I know for the fact that your Muteo, Musupatsila, we've tried to assist them. I know Muteo, we have just brought in some equipment through your ministry, and so we're not doing that simply because we want to propagate a particular narrative, but we are doing that for the sake of community, because that is the most accessible platform that they can do. Because if Mayor says we have multiple platforms, I agree with him, but those platforms are expensive. If you talk about social media, you're talking about data that people cannot really afford. But if you talk about your Muteo radio, you're talking about a platform that anybody can access anytime. So those are other complexities that we have to deal with as communicators and governments, to check as to how best to deliver the information to the public. The public always needs to be engaged, and the only way in which you can be able to do that, it is through a reasonable and a accessible a platform like your community media. Yes, the public broadcaster does, I'll still emphasize, because really at the level of Mangaung, they are playing a prominent role, I must say. You just send out a notice, they run with it, and then people really get the information in time. Yeah,
well, we're taking calls throughout this hour, right? We're really having a discussion about just how the media actually covers what goes on in local government. Are we really getting to the heart of what's actually going on within our municipalities, even as we get closer and closer to national government elections? Taking your calls on 0117140661. Ali is calling, and Ali is with OUTA. That's the organization undoing tax abuse. Ali, thanks for calling. Thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on this discussion?
Good morning to you.
Thank you for calling in.
Quick one.
Sure.
Local governments are always in the news for the wrong reasons. And the picture of towns when you walk into any CBD is a cry for help. Mangaung, for an example, in this instance, now and then, including Mfuleni, the list is endless. It's in the news, workers not paid, rubbish not collected, water, sewage flowing in the streets. But the bigger picture, the Auditor General on annual basis, year in, year out, there's mismanagement of fund, unfruitful expenditure. I don't think we are winning the war in as far as municipalities is concerned. Reasons are in the public domain, political interference, people protesting, and then mayors fighting for positions. So much I do not see there will be a difference in the near future. Not at all.
Yeah. Ali, you've made very powerful points. Thank you so much for calling in. Mr. Kashe, let me bring you in here, right? MDDA essentially really does a lot of work with local media, with the radio stations and newspapers that are in our very communities. Do they understand their responsibility in those communities, in your view?
Well, first let me start by saying that I think both colleagues, the mayor and Gondile here, they are positive reflection on community media really completed me. Yeah, look, I think they certainly do. I think the question that you had asked here earlier on in terms of how does the information is disseminated within the local sphere. I think as all the colleagues have said here that local government, as they would always say, that local government is everyone's business. And I think community media understand specifically what their role is, because if you look at just the community radio's the geographic license is very specific. It says that for programming every day there must be 50 minutes. 50 minutes of news. In the 50 minutes of news, 70% of that should be local, 20% should be regional, and 10% should be national. So I think that is a guiding framework in terms of exactly what you need to emphasize on. And I think what the mayor said is that I think what is important is that we really need to report on, I mean, you know, as he had said, I mean, the IDP sessions where they're taking place. I mean, people want to know when you are going to construct a new taxi rank, when is the councillor, you know, opening, you know, a mall, the SASA points. I think those are the important aspects that should be communicated. As well as, I think the also important one is the issue of bylaws, you know. How do we communicate bylaws, and how does it affect, you know, a normal person on a day-to-day? So I think more can be done, but I think as far as community media is concerned, I think they're really doing their best given the resources that are at their disposal.
Yeah, I want to bring Tebogo in here. Tebogo Pakedi, of course, is our reporter in Mahikeng in the Northwest, and you have been doing incredible work covering the stories coming out of the Northwest. I mean, stories like the very troubled Ditsobotla municipality, for instance. Have you found that really telling those stories, you've struggled to compete with the national discussions that are happening, even though at local level, that's where the decisions are going to be made, regardless what election we're going into?
Good morning, Naledi, of course, to your guests and viewers as well. Yes, as you have stated there that, you know, SABC regions, you go to different provinces, and I just need to highlight that the beauty is that when you go to Free State, for example, you would find SABC there. You go to other, you know, provinces, it is still the same. And this speaks to, you know, issues of the people. As Chapter 7 is saying, the local government has to be democratic and accountable. I think that is the role the media has played, ensuring that we hold the municipalities, you know, accountable. And I wouldn't say it's a bit difficult to compete with, you know, the national space, because you look at the news, the issues of, you know, local media or even municipalities in different parts of the provinces. This speaks to the reality of what is on the ground, because nationally we can talk about policies, we can talk about, you know, the plans, IDPs and all that, but Ali called and, you know, painted a picture of the reality of what you find in different parts of the country. People, you know, complaining that municipalities is not doing enough to deliver services. That has been much highlighted when you look at, you know, SABC News, when you listen to local media as well, as they've highlighted there, that is the cold face of the voices of the people. So as far as competing with the national space, I wouldn't say it's been difficult, because you literally look at the news every day, Naledi, you get to realize that there is a poor service delivery in some parts of the country. You come to Northwest, we've been talking several times about Ditsobotla, which you touch the, you know, with people not, you know, residents not getting services, employees not getting paid, allegations of ghost workers. So I wouldn't say it has really been difficult to compete on the national stage, because provinces, SABC, different regions, they have really been showing the actual picture of what is it that is happening at different, you know, parts of municipalities. Policies are there, but what we look at is to whether they are, you know, is the reality when you go to different parts of the country. You can have Municipal Systems Act, but is it translating to the people? Are people saying the municipality is delivering services? So this is exactly what the media will be looking at. And of course, as far as diverting from that, it will then not be news telling, but just PR.
Okay, Tebogo, we're going to keep talking to you and all of our guests, of course, and we're also going to take a short break. But when we come back, keen to get your calls on this discussion. Give us a call. The number is 011-714-0661. The question we're asking is, do you feel that the stories of your community get lost through the cracks when you look at how the media really speaks to you, particularly when we get closer and closer to elections? Do we have a national discussion more so than we should be doing at a local level that really impacts you? 011-714-0661. We take a short break. We're back in a moment. Welcome back. You're still watching SABC Media and Society, and I am Naledi Mulo. So we're asking this morning, are we as the media responsible for the public's lack of understanding regarding really what goes on in their local government? Taking your calls on 011-714-0661. I'm going to continue our discussion with our guests here in studio. Mr. Gashe, of course, is with the MDDA. Talk to us a little bit about resources. I mean, how much of that is an issue where we talk about how local media is able to disseminate issues?
Yeah, look, resources are of course a challenge. you can never have enough resources. And I think what, as an organization, we try and do is to make sure that the local media sphere is really equipped with the technology that will be able to reflect quality output as well. That's why you will see us on a weekly basis. We are launching new studios, state-of-the-art studios. We want to make sure that the same local media is equipped with more or less the same equipment, as their counterparts, which is commercial or public broadcaster. So we do try and stretch the rent because, as I said, we obviously, like any other state institution, there's really an issue of budget. But I think we try our best to ensure that, we resource them as far as, as much as we can. And precisely for the issue that, all of us here are raising, the issue of ensuring that, the information is disseminated. In the platform, when I was in this platform last time, Naledi, I did emphasize that information is everything, we must ensure that there is no gap in information. Once there's a gap in information, that's why you'll see all these service delivery protests. That's why you'll see, because this is precisely because there's obviously, a gap, information is not flowing from one institution or one state institution to another. So yes, so we try from publishing, print and publishing organization that we assist, from community radio station on a yearly basis. There is resources that we ensure that they have some resources, and I think one of our most important criteria that we employ as well is to ensure that there's a geographic spread in our funding. So we don't necessarily resource one province. We make sure that all.
Let me step in here, because aside from resources, the real question here is the skills that are necessary at local government level, right? Because one of the things that you're going to want to see at national government level is that all media at national government level is going to ask government questions that make them accountable. Does local media understand that that is their role as well?
Yeah, no, certainly. We always say that these local community media institutions are really accountable instruments, if you call it. This is a platform where you expect local government, both traditional authority or municipality, to really go and account on what. Firstly, they start with their plans in terms of what plans they would have for that period, and then secondly, we must, they need to, account in terms of what they have done. There's a new concept I like in the municipality now. There used to be a state of the city. Now I see in there's a state of the ward. Now we see local councillors. Yes, councillors saying now we've got a state of their ward. So I think that is very important, because this is then a ward councillor presenting the plan for a specific ward. Now, of course, what then a community media needs to do is to ensure that the same councillor is then accountable, because once you have a plan, you must then be on a periodic basis to go back and say, this was my plan for that specific year. This is what I have done. And the important thing about accountability is also consistency. You must, whether you have done the work or not, you must still go back and report. You rather go and say, I have not done anything for 6 months, or you would just give, a progress update in terms of what you've done.
I think what's interesting about this discussion that we're having this morning is quite often on the media, what we do is, as media practitioners, we hold government, local, national, provincial, accountable. But really this discussion is about the other way around, right? And the public holding us accountable. And I'm going to ask the executive mayor and Mr. Ketama as well, if we at local media level are asking you the tough questions. Are you getting the platform to be accountable at that level? But let's bring in some calls as well. 011-714-0661. Is the media covering what's happening in your local municipality adequately? Give us a call. Ambrose has called in. Ambrose from Polokwane in Limpopo. Ambrose, good morning. Thank you for calling.
Good morning, lady. How are you?
I'm well, Abutaka. Thank you for calling in. What are your thoughts?
Look, it's a very interesting topic what you are holding today. whether the local media is assisting us as communities to hold municipalities accountable. Some of us, we feel neglected, with regards to local media in assisting us. I want to give a typical example. I'll talk about my community. It's only 5 or 6 kilometers away from the city, Polokwane. It's within the present plan. The community has been staying there for 10 years to 13 years without basic services, right? We have been engaging the municipality, like the councillor went AWOL on the community. We were doing things directly with the community. They will be busy with we are busy with the present plan to formalize your area, because we used to have land disputes over the land. It was an informal settlement. I won't lie about that one. But they keep on hiding behind this thing. No one is coming forward from local government or human settlement to say, no, this is the route, this is what we are doing, and will finish the process on this day. We are there, the mayor of Polokwane, John Mpe, will run to other areas like the sea or Teflop and wherever. A community is 7 kilos from the city. A community that should generate revenue for the government. It's not being assisted. The only thing they know is that they hide it behind our land being a farmland or an informal settlement.
So let me ask you this then, Ambrose. Because this conversation really is about whether your local radio stations, and you can name them. This is the thing. Let's have an open discussion so that they're accountable. What do you want to see from them?
FM.
Yeah.
As saying to them, can you please call the mayor to talk to the community of Mamahule? Tobela FM, they know about this. Energy FM. The mayor is always at these stations, Muleji, Tef FM. That he is not being held accountable. And now, lady, just to add on this one, right? A month ago, I've sent an email with the pictures to SABC News. I would love to get the name of the guy. The guy said, no, I'll send forward this to the news anchor in Polokwane to investigate the story, right? Up until today, there's no communication from SABC News in Polokwane relating to our story. And as communities, we want to be assisted by the media to hold the municipalities accountable. We can't do it alone. But we were putting our hope on media house to assist us. But if no one is assisting us, and we don't know the turnaround time, like, I was glad I saw your show and called in today. Yeah, Ambrose, thank you so much for calling, and I hope that Tobela FM is listening, because these are important discussions. Maswele is calling in. Of course, he's a research specialist with SABC News. Maswele, good morning. Thanks for calling.
Good morning, my lady. What I want to say is that when you check the local government sphere, it's where most stories are.
Yes.
And most of them are sad, my lady. If you go to places like Vembe, in Limpopo, you go to Northwest, you go to Hermanas in the Western Cape, and then you check the contrast between the haves and the have-nots. Then you check what the local government or the municipality in that area is doing. You realize that people are not treated equally. And when the SABC in 2021, just before the elections, we did a very good job in painting those pictures, and we crisscrossed the entire country, and we showed the nation what is happening. Yeah. And one of the things that's still stuck in my mind right now is when we had the mayor of Makanda, who came to the national TV and told the nation that the municipality paid 12 million for four boreholes. And then you ask yourself, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Because if you also check the Auditor General's FMA, Municipal Finance Management audit every year, right now as we speak, since 2016, the amount of fruitless and wasteful expenditure has already crossed over 20 billion rands, in which every year billions of rands is wasted on consultants, whereas the municipalities have people who are supposed to do those jobs. Now, lady, it's worse, and I think the media, especially the SABC, has done a lot to showcase those stories.
And unfortunately, Maswele, while the SABC and other national platforms will continue to expose these stories, you have media platforms in those communities that on a daily basis should be looking at those stories. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to bring you in here and ask the question that I did earlier before we went into the break and say to you, do you get a sense that local media in Umgeni, for instance, is asking the hard questions? I mean, Maswele just talked about the AG report that we get. I mean, does local media go and look for the detailed report of your particular municipality to look at what is actually going on at the finances?
In general, I would say no, and I think it comes back to the previous point about when it comes down to resources and the quality of the ability rather to be able to investigate these sorts of things. So a lot of the information is out there. It's within the reports that are supposed to be made public. But when it comes down to the actual hard scrutiny or the understanding of the laws and the logistics around what we're supposed to do with local government, I don't think that there is that in-depth reporting about that. But I think that points to a general issue that we have in society in South Africa, and that's the lack of understanding of what local government does and what are the laws and what we are empowered to do. So if you don't fully understand as local media what local government is supposed to do and what are the laws around that, then it does become an issue. And I use the example now of irregular expenditure. So the word irregular expenditure has come to mean corruption in South Africa. But irregular expenditure isn't that. Irregular expenditure means that you didn't necessarily follow all the steps to be able to get the outcome. And sometimes that is necessary. If a bridge washes away and you need to replace it because school children can't get to school and you build the bridge, you have to do that, and that's considered irregular expenditure. Yes, you must make sure that it's within budget. Yes, you must make sure that corruption doesn't take place. But there's this misunderstanding, I think, and that's perhaps just us as South Africans evolving into the system that we have. But Naledi, there's something that's on my mind, and I don't know, maybe colleagues on here can help me answer this, is that, as we've heard, funding and resources is an issue for local media. I'm sure it is for national media as well. But there's this tendency for local governments to buy equipment, to set up studios, to buy printing presses, whatever it might be. And that usually comes with terms and conditions for these small media houses to say, well, we're going to buy you all this equipment, but then we want only good news. And that happens across the country in municipalities. So the question maybe is, where's the line? Where does local government intervene in the funding and resources of media? And where does it start to become an issue where you expect, good news stories to be produced because now you are the funders of the creation of the content? But generally to answer your question, no, I think it's the lack of accountability. Media tends to jump on the bad news stories as they appear on social media or wherever it might be, and then that becomes the story, as opposed to what are the mechanisms to get there? How do we unpack that to actually tell a story? And then also to move away from just the bad news stories. I think across the country there are good news stories, but those aren't really told. So you get this picture of local government completely collapsing, which in many cases it is. But there are good news stories out there that I think we can use to inspire hope within local government as well.
Okay, I'm sure you'd agree with that point.
No, I do, Naledi, and the Executive Mayor is correct that we do not have to buy equipment just to promote our narrative. We tell it as it is, as communicators. Communicators have a responsibility of conveying the information, not to run a propaganda. And one of the things that is important is that, Executive Mayor, your responsibility as executive mayor is to communicate. But if your back office is not strong, if the administration, Naledi, is not strong enough, I always say to my executive mayor, you can only go out there once we are sure that there's work that is happening.
Yeah.
I don't allow him to just go there and be undermined because the back office is not doing enough. The only time that you can be able to change the narrative of content in the local government is when you are performing better. And I think especially the political leadership, they would want to hold us as administration responsible there to do your part so that at least you assist your SABC and other media houses in terms of a positive message. Yes, the assessment has not been done properly by the media because 80%, Executive Mayor, 80% of the content that is being generated, honestly speaking, it's negative.
Yeah. And
there's a need for us to, and the media, to do a proper assessment and tell the story as it is, because there are those underlying pockets that are positive, that are not being dug up for one reason, because I still maintain that people don't give themselves enough time to understand local government.
I mean, we can argue about whether or not we're telling more negative stories and positive stories, and that's an unending discussion, particularly where media is concerned. But I know that for the MDDA as well as Tebogo Pakedi, that's going to be an interesting point. We're taking one last caller, Jack in Kimberley. Jack, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm well, sir. What are your thoughts on our discussion?
First, allow me to say congratulations to that young mayor, Peppers. He's doing a great job in his area. I always listen to him. We need more leaders like him. I also concur with the speaker that spoke about SABC doing a great deal of job. I think our local radios need to do even more. They are the ones who must sit on the necks of this local government. Our people are still under the impression that the government they owe the government, and it should be the other way around. The government owes them services. In Kimberley, there's a lot of settlement. There's one I can call now, Snake Park. Those shacks have been there for years. I use the N12 road when I travel to Pretoria and Joburg. You can go to Wolmaranstad and Bloemhof and see how many houses, Wolmaranstad and Bloemhof and Klerksdorp, how many houses they have built. Kimberley, you can count. You can count, but it's because they are reluctant. Nobody is giving them pressure. I think our local media can do more and educate our people. And like your media guy in the studio said, they must have programs, these local government members. Give honest feedback. Come to the people. Come and give feedback. They don't do none of that in Kimberley. Come in Kimberley and come and see how Kimberley is. Street kids are sleeping all over the roads. There's no direction. People are robbed, and Kimberley is small, but look at Kimberley, the city that's supposed to shine.
So what does your local radio station sound like, Jack? Talk to me about that, whether it be local print. What does it look like? Rate it for me.
Radio RST, it's a gospel radio, and it's a Taimani radio, local station. They are doing their part, I must say. But I'm saying they can even do more. They can do more by inviting people in, by doing like Tushomotau, for example, is doing. Tushomotau, many times, he calls these people who are in charge directly. That is what he can do, because they have the access. Their radio stations are not even far from the Southwest municipal government and the Francis Park municipal government.
Okay, Jack, thank you so much for calling. Thank you so much for calling. Okay, unfortunately, I'm actually almost out of time. Tebogo, I'm going to come to you. You work for a national station, SABC News, but you work at regional level. What is it that you want to say to the viewer about what you understand your responsibility to be, and really how you commit to telling those stories moving forward? But also, I suppose you can also talk about the importance of fighting for those stories to find the platform to be heard.
Most definitely, Naledi, we try as reporters go out and tell people's stories. And I love the fact that one of the panelists, spoke to the issue of improvement, and the caller also talking about truthful feedback, because we do commit as journalists going out. We go to the municipality to say, for an example, residents in Lomanyane village do not have water. They've been going without water for, so many years, and they've been coming to the municipalities. I can tell you, Naledi, there are so many stories that we end up doing follow-ups, because the response perhaps from the municipality would be, we are doing the best we can to solve this. Years later, it's not actually the case. Now, the frustrations of viewers, of community members, some of them ending up saying the media is not doing enough, is because there is no truthful feedback, if one can, put it that way. But I think what is also important is the fact that educating our people is quite important. Yes. I'll make an example with, district municipalities and local municipalities. The district municipalities would be your water authority, but the water, provider would be the local municipality. Sometimes we see protest with residents saying, Ngaka Mudirimolama is not doing what it can to deliver water to people. But you go to the municipality and they tell you that we did provide bulk water to the local municipality. Yeah. But the issue is with reticulation. So I think it is important that while the municipality has different policies, different legislations, and how they speak to the stories of, residents, it is important that we also, teach them the administration, because they know that they want services. The municipality also is saying they are delivering services, but perhaps where they need to go, the role of councillors as well, because those councillors are also voices of these people when it comes to different councils of the municipality.
Yeah, that's the responsibility we have as the media. It really doesn't, I think that's the clearest way of explaining it. So, Mr. Kasha, this really puts you in the hot seat, because as the MDDA, you are tasked with skilling, informing and resourcing media at local level. I mean, where do we take the discussion from here? Because as we get closer to elections, a lot of the discussions are going to be what's going on in local municipalities. How are we preparing our media houses for not just educating, but also really also keeping up with what's actually going on in our communities?
Yeah, no, well, indeed, I'm in a hot seat, Naledi. Look, yes, I think what your colleagues have been saying here, really, I also echo the same sentiments as well. I think what we've been doing as the agency, one, we've been doing a lot of capacity building, ensuring that, community media personnel are really skilled and equipped for them to be able, obviously, to manage the issue of media at a local sphere. And I think the second part is an issue of ensuring that they have the equipment. Because I think for you to be able to do this work, one, you need the skills. Secondly, you need the equipment. Yeah. You need to have the cameras. You need to have all the different, if you are the journalists, the skills to make sure that you are able to get the story that is required.
But there's ethics. I mean, there's journalistic ethics as well that are important.
No, of course. No, that's critical. In fact, one of our capacity building program, we have media ethics. For us, that's key. The issues of misinformation and all that, trying to prevent that. So that's utmost important. So the issue of ethics is really at the center of really quality journalism. So I think skilling them and making sure that they've got resources. And I think what the mayor said, which was very, very important for me, was that I think what we need to do more is to make sure that the same media houses have an in-depth understanding of the local government. Yeah. Because for them to ensure that there's accountability, they must first understand what is required and what is the responsibility of local government. Yeah. Then they're able to hold them accountable.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to keep having this discussion. It's not going anywhere because it's a critical one, and we always appreciate you having, you making the time to speak to us. Mr. Mzuvugile Gashe, who is the Executive Project Manager for MDDA, Mr. Kondile Ketama, Mangaung spokesperson, political commentator, as well as a communications specialist. Thanks so much as well to Debogo Pakedi, SABC News journalist in Mahikeng in the Northwest. And of course, Executive Mayor, Mr. Chris Papas, Mayor of Umgeni Local Municipality in KwaZulu-Natal. That's where we wrap up this discussion. We've got something special for you. Someone who's really contributed to shaping the minds of young people on media platforms. After the break, stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching SABC Media and Society. My name is Naledi Molel. So For 28 years, Jackie Sawani has been at the heart of every strategy on children's media at the SABC. Her tireless work and creative approach has been honored by the Nelson Mandela Children's Film Festival, which has bestowed her with a Lifetime Achievement Award. She joins us here in studio this morning. Jackie, good morning and welcome to Media and Society. So what many people don't know is that you have received this award after giving birth to many careers, one of them being mine as well. Talk to me a little bit about what this reward really means for you.
It means the world to me. It was really unexpected. I mean, you know, it's what I do. It's my life. It's my work. It's my passion. Working with children's media. So, I mean, I was really not expecting it. I really love to thank the Nelson Mandela Children's Film Festival, especially Firdous Bubulia and Faith Isaac-Spear, who actually bestowed me with this amazing award.
Yeah. So, what a lot of people don't know is Jackie Sawani really was at the very, at the core of establishing television shows like Kids News all the way back in 2004 that essentially created a generation of storytellers. She has been at the heartbeat of creating content that has educated and informed children across the country for close to 3 decades, and she's joining us in studio, of course, after being bestowed the Nelson Mandela Children's Film Festival Award for the lifetime achievement of her work. One of the things that I think we have missed, especially currently in media, is content for children.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about why it is important for us to keep creating content for children.
I think, you know, we have to recognize the power of media in really influencing and just affecting all of us. You know, we are watching our screens, our small screens, television all the time. And as a public broadcaster, we have that responsibility as well to broadcast content for everybody, but somehow children are kind of left somewhere there and they're not as important, and we forget that children and young people are future leaders of this country. So we need to use our media in a very responsible manner to ensure that they are not just entertained, but they are informed and they really understand what's happening in their world, so that one day when their time comes, they can take over and lead this country to prosperity.
Yeah. Well, while we have had that gap, I think we really have had quite a gap in children's content. It's making a comeback. I mean, what have you got in the works now?
Yes. I mean, there's all sorts of things going on. So, I mean, we are mandated, as I said, as the SABC to broadcast children's content across all our 3 channels. And so that is ongoing work. But I think what we're trying to build, especially for the young kids, is to really tap into the rich stories that we have as South Africans and as the continent, and really start moving towards a space of animation.
Yes.
Because also for a long time, you know, people believe that children's media and content cannot be monetized, and it certainly can. We've seen with the likes of the Disneys, who produces amazing animation work, that their content travels the world, and why can't we do the same? So I'm really keen on building the space in animation, but there's also just other content that's there for children, for teenagers. There are too many to mention, but yeah, we keep building. And I think what I'm also cognizant of is that we need to diversify the content offering for children, so that it's not just studio based and kids jumping up and down in the studio, but also have documentaries for children and really document the lives of kids in our country wherever they find themselves, and give them that voice and that platform to talk about their own realities, what works in their community, what doesn't, you know, what affects them, because they need to also be given that platform platform to talk and talk about things that are important to them.
Yeah, there's something about being given a Lifetime Achievement Award, isn't there? Because there's a sense that when you've been given a Lifetime Achievement Award, that there's no more to do when there still is,
Yes,
right?
yes.
What do you need, Jackie, so that you can keep creating all of these visions that you have right now for animating children's content? I go back to my own childhood, and we had, you know, Kiddio and all these, so much educational content that really shaped the minds of my generation, and you've certainly worked hard over the past 30 years to keep that going. What do you need to continue?
Yeah, I think the award, first of all, just spurs me on to do even more. It really rejuvenated me to say, oh, somebody's seeing my work. But of course, I don't do it alone. I work with a team of people. But I think in terms of what we need is that collaboration and partnerships are key, you know, because creating content is very, very expensive. And so it's important to partner with like-minded people and organizations who work in the space of children, so that we can all work together and amplify our efforts to the benefit of our kids. So I think for me, that's the most important thing, is to find a collaboration and partners, not only in this country, but in the continent and the world, because on your own, it's a daunting task, and we know that media budgets are being cut on a daily basis. So that would be the most important thing for me.
Resources need to go to the babies. Jackie, thank you so much for speaking to us. And of course, this is someone that I consider my own television mom as well. Thank you so much for coming into studio, Jackie Sawani. And that's where we wrap up the show. Thank you so much for joining us on Media and Society. We're back with you next week, Sunday, 9 to 10. Have yourselves a great day.